Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Student Insider podcast. I am joined by Alex, but also today we have two guests, Laura and Rebecca Dunne from Not Going To Uni. If you both like to introduce yourselves quickly and a bit about the company would be great as well.
Yep, so my name's Rebecca, I'm the Partnerships Manager here at Not Going To Uni.
Yeah, and I'm Laura, and I'm the marketing manager here. And essentially what Not Going To Uni is a jobs board for 16 to 24-year-olds to come on and apply for all different alternatives to university, as it says in the name.
Really interesting. I feel like, as you feel like it's becoming more and more relevant recently?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think we've seen like a massive increase for one in applications just through the website, but also through the fact of like schools and careers advisors and things like that coming to us to actually ask for like what are the alternatives to university and how can we educate our students on this. So I think it's an increase from both sides really.
But I think there's still quite a bit of a stigma around it. So there's still a lot of people that would think university is like, you know, the route that everyone needs to go down. So we're still, even though it's got a lot better, there's still like a long way to go in terms of breaking that and getting more people to be aware of all of the opportunities and why we're obviously trying to do that. The opportunities are just increasing. So yeah, I mean, it's great. You can even be a doctor now. Well, I think from next year you can become a doctor from doing an apprenticeship. So it's like things like that, which is just like, you know, it's amazing to have that opportunity.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's really exciting actually. I didn't realise that was something they were doing. And I will admit that, I mean, from my experience and maybe from yours as well, that, I mean, my school definitely pushed university quite heavily.
Yeah.
I think the other options were made available to us, but not necessarily, you know, explained very well. So I guess that's like one of the benefits of the Not Going To Uni website, I think, amongst other sort of career searching engines.
Yeah, and I think that's how it is it seems for a lot of people. I mean, I know when we was at school, it was very much, as you said, you know, focused on UCAS, university, and everything like that. But there was some apprenticeships around, but I suppose there wasn't as many. And now as we've got more apprenticeships, it hasn't changed. There's not more information about that in many schools anyway. So it's really about trying to push that out to get people more aware, because they'd only realise if they obviously knew someone who'd done an apprenticeship. And again, it would just be like the traditional, you know, hairdressing, plumbing and that kind of thing. And that's kind of gone the other way now. That's more minimal and it's bigger in other areas. So yeah.
Yeah, no, and even a doctor now can be a thing from an apprenticeship, which is quite exciting in itself. Maybe we'll talk a bit about that later in the episode. But if you could just give us a quick overview of the kind of resources that the Not Going To Uni website and sort of the platform that you've established is there for students, and what kind of support the company can give.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So obviously the main part of it is the jobs board, but we also have like our advice section on there. We have all of our social media channels and just like a range of different support. So a big part of my job role here is to work with our ambassadors, and we have I think it's about 50 ambassadors now, and they are basically people who are currently apprentices in all different companies all over the UK. Like literally we have some in Scotland, some in Wales, like Birmingham, London. They're all over the UK in all different companies doing all different roles, and they create content for us like blogs that are on our website for people to go and read. They create reels and TikToks for us for our social media, and it kind of just gives people an idea of what it is like to be an apprentice now and hear real life advice from people who are going through what they will soon be going through, if that makes sense.
Is that so? Do they put that onto the Not Going To Uni, like your social media sites, or is it like they do it on their brand and you kind of reshare
so
it?
It's a bit of both really. It depends. Some of them have like specific apprenticeship Instagram pages and TikTok pages, so if they want to post it on theirs then they can, and we post it on ours as well. So it's kind of like a bit of both. Some of them just want to do it through us, and it's really dependent on the person, but it's great to see obviously the fact that the ambassador scheme is huge now. Since I first started, we've grown from about 10 to 50 in about 6 months, so it's grown massively, and it's just great to have that kind of support that we can offer to people who want to become apprentices or any other routes out there.
Yeah, that's really good actually.
There's also sorry, I just wanted to add something about him. So there's something called the Apprenticeship Academy. So what this is it's basically like a new business kind of thing that we're doing as part of Not Going To Uni. And what it does is it allows us to go and actually do a virtual session. So it's a 6-week program where we would be kind of giving the content. So whereas now in form time, in tutor time after school and stuff, it's all about university applications, we deliver a program to people who sign up, like the school leavers and stuff, to show them how to find an apprenticeship, what you should do, where you can find it, how to apply, and, you know, interview skills and all that kind of thing. So we're actually delivering that now as well, because we realised there was a gap in that market in terms of, you know, schools and careers leaders, they didn't know what to try and teach and what to try and tell people about it. So that's really exciting that we're obviously able to help that for students.
So would you like go into, is that like going into schools and kind of like delivering those talks? Or?
It can be, but at the minute it's virtual, just because then we have more of a wider basis,
Nice.
so it can be nationwide.
Absolutely.
But we do also do like careers talks, and we can go to careers fairs and stuff like that, you know, locally and a few far out. So yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
I think that's really, really great actually, because it kind of gives that opportunity for schools to stop making those excuses, I guess, if there are excuses, because it's like they can now, we're reaching out to these schools, we're reaching out to you to provide these opportunities to these students, rather than kind of waiting for nothing to change in the schools. And that's one of the questions that we wanted to ask actually, because on the website, university is defined as like the standard route for schools, and I was checking the UCAS sort of statistics, and apparently 37.9% of 18-year-olds start full-time undergraduate courses, I think this year or maybe last year. And I was just wondering, why do you think this is, and are schools doing enough to make these alternatives more desirable for students?
Laura, do you want to start on that one?
Yeah, of course. So I think we kind of covered it a bit already about the fact that this is improving and that schools are trying to do a bit more. But as Becky said earlier, I think there's still a long way to go. But I think with the fact that university is the standard route, I think it's difficult, because even when I was at school, and it weren't even that long ago, like 5-6 years ago, university was just pushed, and I didn't even know what a degree apprenticeship was until I started at this company. And it sounds so bad, but I really didn't. And I think even with what I do, I could have done that as a degree apprenticeship, but I just didn't know that option was there. And I think a lot of people just don't know the options, and that's why university is just the standard thing, because it's almost the easy route to do, because people know how to apply. They know, oh, you go to the open days, you see what the course is about, and it's just, I think people see it as an easy option to just carry on education and kind of not have to think about anything else. But yeah, I think that it's just the lack of education. People are improving, but it's still just a massive long way to go. And I think it will be like that for a while, unfortunately.
I think what also, you know, doesn't help is like parents, because it's a very, I suppose, traditional, you know, a lot of parents think that it's what they want their kids to do. It's, you know, they'll be really proud and all that. But why can't you be proud of, like, if they do an apprenticeship, they're doing what they want to do still? So I think there's a lot of pressure. And I mean, from speaking to some ambassadors as well, we get told that obviously a lot of it is, you know, they've been told from their parents, or their parents have done the same sort of thing and they wanted to follow in their footsteps and stuff like that. But it's very important to try and think, well, what do you want to do? What's going to make you proud of yourself, instead of having to, you know, impress everyone else. So I think there's a lot of perception that needs to be changed, not just on teachers and schools, but also in terms of parents and like carers and stuff like that, to try and help with obviously students choosing what they want to do instead.
I think I can definitely relate to those, but both of everything that you've said, to sort of very personally, because when I reflect back as to when I was finishing my GCSEs and I was looking at the options for sixth forms and colleges, I don't know if you guys can have anything similar to relate there, but
yeah, I think a lot of our ambassadors, which I work really closely with them, and a lot of them have had similar experiences. They're like from the ages of like 18 to 21, 22, so they're still in that stage of kind of knowing what they're trying to work out, what they're doing. And a lot of them have said they've had issues with parents, or maybe it's teachers, careers advisors, and they've had the same experience. And I think it's just really difficult, because as Becky was saying about parents, because they're older, and the same goes for careers advisors and careers leaders and things like that, they think that university is the best route, because when they were younger, that maybe was what the route was. And it's just all kind of trying to mist buff, I get, and whatever the word is. What's the word?
Bust the myths.
There you go. To kind of get people to understand that university is great, but if you have good grades, it doesn't mean you have to go to university. There are other great options out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I'm just thinking back to when I applied to university, and like so I was looking at other options like degree apprenticeships and stuff like that, and so this was a few years ago now. So then there were more options coming out, but I feel like now there's even more to when I was applying, which is good, because like now there's even more options out there for people. And
Yeah.
Just to like to loop back to like something we were just mentioning earlier in terms of like the job market for students like exiting like sixth form. How do you feel like that is right now versus like university and just that in general, really?
I think in terms of that, I mean, as we said, there's so many more options. So there's not just, I mean, we keep saying degree apprenticeships, but there's also like a range of other level of apprenticeships. There's traineeships, work experience, placements, gap years. You can travel abroad, which is great. There's literally so many other options out there. So as much as obviously a lot of people would think university, you can take a year off and then go to university if you really want. Like there's so much more, and I think people are slowly realizing that more, which is why obviously people are trying different options, but it's still not as good as it was. And I think, as you obviously mentioned there, Alex, there's been a lot more. There's like a rise in employers that are getting more involved in different schemes, which is nice to see. I mean, there's still some employers that will just focus on graduates or people who are more experienced, but there's so many more that are now introducing different apprenticeships or traineeships or actually offering experience, which is really great. And we was actually talking about this earlier. I don't know if some of it is because of the apprenticeship levy. So basically a lot of employers had money left over in their pots and it was just sitting there being wasted kind of thing. So because of that, it's more incentive, I suppose, from the government for them to invest in that talent from using the money that they've got left over in the pot, or it's just going to be kind of wasted away. But that's kind of worked really well, because obviously the result of that is having all these top employers that are making all the millions and making all the money offering these great positions, which is it's a really great entry level way into a different into an organization. Like you can be working up London, you can be working wherever you want, and it's a really good progression in terms of what you can do afterwards. So I think from reviewing, I suppose, against what it was like when I left school and I left sixth form, I think the job market now for students is so much better. It's just about them knowing about it. I mean, Laura, do you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's important to add that although obviously the job market there's a lot more opportunities on the market now, I think it also makes it a lot more competitive. And because there is so many great opportunities out there, like, for example, all of your big banks now offer apprenticeships, and all of your really big, I don't know, shops, or do you know what I mean? Whatever it is, all the big brands that we all know and love, they all offer great apprenticeships and opportunities, which makes it so much more competitive, because obviously everybody wants to work at those massive companies. So yeah, it's great there's more opportunities, but it does make it harder, I think, to get into it because of the amount of applications that big companies like that now get.
Yeah.
So what do you think is important for someone that say they're either exiting sixth form and they're looking for a job out of sixth form? What do you think is something that makes people stand out in applications? I
think experience, and I know everybody says that, and then you go into a job and they say, "Oh, I have 5 years of experience," and you're 18 and you think, "How could I do that?" But I think any experience you can get is valuable. Whether it's a 1 week placement, or even if it's a couple of days working at a company in the industry that you're going to go and apply for an apprenticeship for, it gives you something to talk about. And we actually had a girl do some work experience in the marketing department here for a couple of days. And I was saying to her, I said, just use this in all of your interviews, because you can talk about all of the stuff you've done. You can talk, we had a session and I spoke to her about the marketing industry in general, and she was asking me questions, and I said, use all of this, because a lot of the people that they're interviewing, they won't have the same experience now that you've got, even though it was just 2 days. I think the experience is just so vital.
But I think as well, I mean, obviously we worked in the hotel and stuff before we got a job, and I think that kind of supported our applications, because even though it was not particularly relevant to what we wanted to do, if we had done nothing, it would be right, so you just went to school, you've done your A-levels, whatever, and then off you go and try and find another job. Well, because we've done work alongside it, it shows obviously a good skill. It shows that you can multitask, you're organised, and you have work ethic, which is what people look for. Because I think there's a lot of I want to say perception of that young people are not lazy, but they don't want to get up and do what they need to do kind of thing. And it's nice to kind of show that you can do that, and that really does set you apart. And it definitely helps. I mean, I have a few friends that, for example, when they left school, they didn't have a job, and they never worked or whatever. They went to university, they still never had a job. After they graduated, trying to find a job was really hard, because they're looking at an application, they could have got the top degree, and it was amazing, but then then they're like kind of saying, well, you haven't got any experience, how can you apply that, have you even worked in an office before or whatever, and it is a barrier. So I definitely agree that I think that's something you really do need. But also aside from that, like things like just you've got to try and sell yourself. So anything that you can do that makes you stand out, even if it's a personal experience or if it's like, you know, something that makes you unique, you shouldn't be scared to shy away from it, because it really is about, you know, basically you're competing with everyone else who's got they might have the same plain old simple story and you want to be different. Yeah,
I think
100%. I think it's like those different like aspects that can make you stand out. Even like those, for example, doing a work experience. Like I remember doing work experience when I was in sixth form in marketing, and I've ended up like continuing working in like different roles in marketing, and just by like literally calling a company up and saying, I'm looking for work experience, and just doing stuff like that can really help you stand out. And just putting that like a little bit of like just thought into doing something that might be a bit different, to, you know, just like get you started on like whatever like you want to do in like whatever industry.
And I think that's, people seem to be, well, I remember when I was doing it, you're kind of scared to take that phone call and, you know, ring up, especially when you're the one who's looking for a job, rather than just going on Indeed and applying that way. Like I remember me and Laura we was in my dad's office, and we was ringing up loads of different companies all nearby, like local to us, trying to ask for like work experience or like a job or whatever. And it was hard. You kind of get nervous to be like, you know, you're so young and you're trying to say like, oh, can I have a job please? And it's, you know, it's scary. But I think having the confidence to do that is an accomplishment in itself. And even if you do get told no, it's still, you're trying and you're still, you know, going through the process. So I think it's, you know, it's what you've got to try and do. We've all been there. We've all done it. So, yeah.
I think I would add as well that I think it's worth considering your own worth as an individual when you're applying to companies, because I think that because everything is so competitive, companies are starting to leverage that into their advantage, where you'll start doing like an internship and you'll have to work for free for like a certain amount of years just to build up that experience for yourself. And a lot of entry-level positions usually ask for ridiculous amounts of experience that is unattainable. And I think that following the COVID-19 pandemic, it's kind of become like a secondary pandemic in like an experience deficit pandemic in a way. Of people not having the, you know, the skills that they should have, or the opportunities they should have had because of COVID, and that's now detrimenting them now.
Yeah, I think that's interesting actually. And we've seen, I had a couple of emails recently actually about people that were looking to apply to these positions and things like that, but they didn't like have the experience, and it's no fault of their own because nobody could go out the house. So you couldn't have gone in, even you couldn't have even gone and worked in a shop or gone and worked in a pub or a restaurant, whatever it was, because you just like, you physically couldn't. And I do think that companies are kind of realizing that, and they do kind of understand that we are at the moment going through that generation where people couldn't do that. And again, I think like, although employers are understanding, you've kind of still got to, now you can go out your house and do whatever you need to do, use that to your advantage and just go and get all the experience you can. Obviously it is difficult, but now's the time to kind of do it.
I think,
I feel like it's also,
I was going to say, I think as well, what is quite interesting is obviously how COVID impacted, and what is, I don't know myself if it's a question that employers ask nowadays, but what would be interesting is to see in them, you know, in that long time when we was in lockdown, when, you know, you couldn't go out, you couldn't go to work, you couldn't go to school, whatever it was, what did you do? What did you do in that time to make yourself, you know, did you do any online online courses, or like, you know, did you do anything to kind of advance yourself in your own way, or did you just sit there and play games all day? Like it's about like, but that will really help you set you apart from everyone else. And also it kind of shows how proactive you've been in such a difficult situation. So definitely that's something worth considering.
Absolutely.
I guess to give a good example, me and Alex set up this podcast actually.
Well, there we go.
And look at that, like, great. So that's proactive. What it's about. Yeah. And that's, imagine.
So there's an example for you.
Yeah, but some of your friends, I'm sure they wouldn't have done that. They'd have probably been like, you know, playing Xbox or whatever. And, you know, this is what you've done. You're making like a business and helping everyone else out, and that's what we want. Like, it's good. So yeah.
Oh, don't get me wrong. There was a lot of gaming that was still done during the pandemic, unfortunately. But yeah, No, it's very interesting. I think that I like to use the word sportified for the current like sort of market for like apprentices and sort of any sort of job at the minute. And experience is very important. So it's just being creative with it, and transferable skills is a big thing.
Yeah.
And something that me and Alex were mentioning earlier as well was that a lot of companies do look for degrees in their applicants because of the skills that it does show. And I was wondering, do you think that does disadvantage? I mean, I know you mentioned before that it's kind of changing where companies are a lot more open to having students without a degree and having these apprenticeship routes, but I'm not sure. I haven't done too much of a comprehensive job search myself, but do degrees kind of get favoured in a lot of situations?
I think there's almost like there's this whole big thing now in the recruitment market where you don't need a CV anymore. I know that sounds really weird, but it's like, I'm sure you know, Becky, you do the sales side of it, so you probably know more than me, but it's just like where you have to sell yourself and you are your CV kind of thing. A lot of companies have kind of scrapped that CV part of it, and it is just like, maybe it's screening tests or it's like assessment centres or whatever it is, but they want to know you more as a person rather than your qualifications. And although this is just kind of at the big companies at the moment, from what I know about this, I think it will kind of latch on, for one, because of the pandemic. I think a lot of big companies have took that into consideration, but also just because I think it's a great way to kind of get a job. Obviously, you need some background knowledge, and I couldn't just rock up and be a doctor because I have no idea what I'm doing. But at the end of the day, if I went for a marketing job, I know that I know my stuff, and if somebody asked me questions, I would know what to say. But equally, I need to be the kind of person that's approachable. I need to be able to communicate, and all of them. And you can learn them, or you can demonstrate them skills, through other ways rather than just a generic interview. And without your CV, I think it's a great way. But I know that I assume you, Becky, know a bit more about that than me with the whole sales side of it.
Yeah. So I mean, well, actually, recently as well, I was doing some recruitment. It was for one of our clients, and how that kind of worked was they had like a criteria that you have to kind of, I suppose, try and match based on the CVs, but it was very dependent on the roles. So there was like 4 different opportunities, and 2 of them was degree level, and 2 of them was like not degree level. And obviously for the ones at a degree level, because you still have to go to university to, that's involved, you have to have a certain amount of UCAS points. So for that, there is kind of, restrictions in that way. But in terms of the other ones, they set okay, you need to get like an ABB or whatever it was. But then they was like, but we're flexible. If someone, has like a CBA and, they seem really keen, then, we'll give them an interview. And I think it's a lot about thinking about that. And that's a mindset that a lot of organisations would be moving to if they haven't already, because, as Laura said, because of the pandemic. But even when you do speak to candidates, I mean, I spoke to God knows how many candidates when I was doing the, interviewing and stuff. And it's interesting to know, I spoke to some of them just because I like the look of their CV, and I was like, I want to give them a chance and see what they're saying, even if they had they applied and they have no interest at all in, no experience in the sector. And it's like, well, I want to know, why did you apply then? What makes you different and what makes you stand out? And yeah, some of them, they would have been just, I accidentally clicked the button, do you know what I mean? But some of them were actually like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't understand the industry, but I really want to learn. And I think that's kind of what we have to appreciate, because if it is an apprenticeship, some people are doing like a career change or, a different sector they've never been in before. So that was really, really interesting. And also to understand, I suppose, how it was interesting after the pandemic, speaking to candidates and understanding how they're going to, approach an interview. Because obviously it's been a while since they was trying. So it was interesting, and obviously they was very nervous and stuff, but it's about trying to reassure them and just taking what you can from speaking to them. Like, they speak about their experiences, their skills, and what they'll bring to the job. And you can tell they're nervous, but it's about showing, I suppose, how prepared they are, which is another factor to consider. Yeah.
I think it's interesting, and it's really nice to hear actually that starting to put an emphasis on sort of the interpersonality parts of the applications rather than just the formalities, looking at the CV and the experience.
Yeah.
I think that's something that probably would be a lot more emphasised, because I guess, I think the enthusiasm and passion can get you quite far into a job despite your experience, whereas if you know what you're doing but you don't necessarily enjoy what you're doing, I don't think that you'll probably be less productive in the long run, and probably not as much of an asset to the company. But I'm not sure if that's something that's generally prioritised in general in the current job market.
Yeah, I think again, it depends. I think on bigger companies, in more multinational and all that kind of thing, it's a bit more, strict and stuff because they are bigger. But with the smaller companies, definitely they're just looking for someone that's kind of, you know, able to do a job and they've got a passion. And even sometimes in the job applications, it kind of says, you know, looking for a motivated individual and all that kind of thing, rather than saying looking for someone who knows what they're doing and knows about the industry and stuff, because it's not always about that. So it is nice to see that change. And, you know, hopefully, for the sake of, you know, the students today, that this is the way forward for the rest of the organisations. Because really, I mean, it's about trying to give yourself a chance and trying to, you know, try a different opportunity. And that's the whole point of not going to university and trying something different, because you want to, you know, you want to test things out. You want to see what you can do and see what you like and see what you don't like. You haven't got to have it all set in stone when you leave school. So it's quite nice to have that, you know, we're not just looking at CV, we're looking at your passion, your personality, and what you can bring as a person. Because I mean, it's like they say, you know, we're not just a bit of paper, we're an actual person. We've got, like, you know, we can speak, we've got a brain and whatever else. So you just might not put it on paper, but, you know, it's there. So it's worth definitely looking at that.
I think sort of along the lines of that, I think it's, for students like at such a young age, it seems like quite a big commitment to jump into a degree or maybe even an apprenticeship that's you're going to be committed to for, like, you know, the next couple to few years. Would you have any advice for anyone that's kind of juggling ideas around? Because I mean, Rebecca, you mentioned like quite a few different options with like gap years and like the degree apprenticeships, etc. It seems like a lot for someone so young to decide on. I know it was definitely a big thing for me, you know, picking universities and looking at courses in itself. So even in the degree sphere alone, it's already overwhelming, and then you have all these other opportunities as well.
No, I think it is overwhelming, and there is a lot to choose between, and especially now there is even more. I think what it is about choosing a few from each. So I mean, I'd applied to university, I went to university, but what I done was kind of look at the top, you know, find out what I liked. So I liked business and I liked psychology, so it was like, right, I'm going to find some courses that are suitable, that are within the locations I want to go to, which was easy because I wanted to stay at home, but, you know, looking within what you like there. Then I thought, okay, this is what I want to do if I went to uni. What if I want to do a gap year? So, you know, I explored, I went online, I found, you know, Camp America or Camp Bali or whatever it is, to try and find some different opportunities. And then I would kind of, you know, there's a lot of things out there, but you have to think, you like narrow it down in a way. So think, right, if I do want to do an apprenticeship, you know, you're not going to want to do it in engineering if you're you know, that's not your, you know, your passion. So it's about thinking, what do you like and what is kind of reasonable. Because for example, there might be like you know, a graduate position that you've seen and you're thinking, right, I want to go to university, I want to go and apply for, I don't know, the Barclays graduate scheme. Well, why don't you have a look, because there could be an apprenticeship scheme which is a faster way in. So I think it's just about trying to, you know, try not to get too overwhelmed, which obviously is a bit inevitable, but just kind of taking it step by step and looking into all the different possibilities you can get, because at the end of the day, you never know what's going to happen, especially with exams and everything as well. You know, you might think, right, I really want to go to university. What happens if you don't get the grades? And I mean, you know, that's the worst case scenario, but if it doesn't, you need to have a backup. So I definitely think you just have to do your research and have a look and see what's out there.
I think linking to that as well, it's about doing your research early, which I know is easier said than done when there's 101 other things going on. But if you do your research before applications open for uni or before applications open for these apprenticeships or whatever it is you're looking at, you're already ahead of the game, and you're not in, like, you maybe you won't feel as overwhelmed because you already kind of have your, like, bits and pieces kind of ready, and you know where you're going to apply to, you know what you're interested in, and you're ahead of the game kind of thing. I think it makes it a lot easier if you prepare like in advance, if you can.
Yeah,
I think something that worked really well for me, so when I applied for my placement year, was like building a like a foundational application that I can kind of then use and adapt to different roles. So kind of like having that cover letter, having that CV that is like tailored to so I was like applying for the marketing industry. So kind of like having that foundational one and then kind of just like adapting it for each like application, each company. And that way you're not redoing it. It doesn't feel like as much like time for each one. You kind of like build that. That one that you can use, and then so it's not as much of a.
Yeah, I was just going to say,
like
linking to that,
time constraint.
Kind of once you've done it once as well, you'll find that a lot of, especially if you're going for the same industry, like with yourself, if you're looking at marketing, you'll probably find a lot of the requirements for different companies were actually really similar. because with a person doing marketing, there's probably a lot of similar requirements, whereas if you're doing something to do with sport or something else, you'll probably find that there's, again, different requirements for that. And like you said, if you've done it once, you then can just repeat it when you're doing kind of other applications.
Exactly.
I mean, how did you, just come into my head, how did you guys find it? Because obviously you applied for jobs and everything only like 1 or 2 years after us, but like, was there a lot of pressure and a lot of kind of options for you as well then? Because I know when we applied, there was only, say, 1 or 2 different types of apprenticeships out there, so it was kind of, I suppose, a bit easier in that way, that like we had less options, but I'm guessing you guys had a bit more.
So when I applied to university, I was also applying to like degree apprenticeships as well.
Okay.
So I was looking at both options. I ended up deciding to go to university. It's just, for me, I just was looking at the different options, and I just like made followed the gut kind of choice. In terms of that, and like, but the degree apprenticeships there. So when I was applying, there wasn't a lot of them, because I knew I wanted to go for like the apprenticeship. I wanted to like go for the degree apprenticeship route if I was going to do an apprenticeship. And it's just that there wasn't really as much out there. I feel like there's not. So from what I remember, I don't know if it's different now, but there wasn't a lot of universities like pairing with the apprenticeships. I don't know if that's different now. But yeah, I feel like there probably is more options now. But it wasn't that overwhelming, because there wasn't that many options, not that I saw anyway. Like, not a huge amount of apprenticeships. I did see there was a lot of like level 3 ones, but obviously I was like in the process of finishing my A-levels, so I felt like the thing I wanted to do was to be, like the next level up kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. Luke, was it the same for you?
So for me, I had set pretty early on that I was going to go to university. I'm not sure where that came from. I think it was very much I felt like I had the ability to do something difficult, and I wanted to challenge myself, which what I felt a degree could do for me. I wasn't too familiar with the apprenticeship options. I'm sure there are like very challenging apprenticeships out there, but at the time I wasn't very aware of them. I'd settled on science pretty early on, so my university search was very much narrowed after I had, I'm very interested in like the biological sciences. And then it was just looking at unis, which courses, which unis are sort of, I don't want to say famous, but which unis are good for certain, certain degrees, and, who's teaching there, what kind of research are they doing. That was kind of what I was looking at. And I eventually settled on applying for medicine. I feel like I made a bit of a rush decision. I wish, looking back, I'd taken a bit more time to really think about if I wanted to do it, because as soon as I'd set my mind on it, it was like, okay, we've got the UK CAT and BMAT, like admission tests coming up. And it took a lot of my time away, and I wish I'd spent a bit more time looking at the options back then. And now I've finished my degree at King's College London in biochemistry. Amazing. So a bit of a change. But yeah.
But I think that
was my story.
I think that's the thing though, because we all kind of do. If you go to uni or whatever, I mean, like, great, you go and get a degree, and you enjoy it. But then it is about kind of what you think about afterwards. So I mean, when we talk about apprenticeships, I mean, I don't know, back in the day when it was my turn at school, it was a bit more like that's where, the people that don't have as much idea go. But now it's changed so much that it's like, now really you're quite clever if you get to do an apprenticeship, like as in you're smart, because you're kind of taking one step ahead of the game, compared to if you go to university, then you've got to wait for a graduate role afterwards, which again, you've got to try and get. So I think there's a lot of now different entry levels in, which does benefit. And it's very, I mean, as you said, you could be doing like, medicine, and then, what are you going to do afterwards? I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a doctor. So it's very, not as clear set as I'm going to go and do this, I'm going to become that. It's a bit more muddled nowadays.
Yeah, I think that both of your stories, Alex and Luke, kind of prove the point of the fact that there isn't that much education on apprenticeships. And although since I've been working here, I've seen an improvement, I was exactly the same as both of you, and I didn't know anything about apprenticeships. I just thought that university was what I should do, and that's what I did. And I'm glad I did it. I wouldn't change it. But I wish I did have the education on what an apprenticeship was, because I literally had no idea.
I mean, I started this job only in March or May, anyway, and like this year. And I must admit, when I first started, I had no clue about all the different opportunities, and I was shocked. I mean, and then we're getting told that all these clients, bring up this client and everything, and I'm like, okay, and I'm like, oh wow, like they actually doing an option as well, like, and you don't think about it. And I get excited. I'm like, oh really, like they do this as well, and I'm like, oh, they do this. I wish I could literally do it myself. Like, it's really good. So I think it's it's about more awareness, but maybe not even just at schools, but in general, like even to adults, I don't know, something on the TV or whatever it may be. Like, for example, this podcast, hopefully that helps with the listeners to get more people to understand and just know the options to tell everyone else, because it really is something that needs to be changed.
Yeah.
I was going to actually ask, do you wish you did anything differently back then? But it sounds like the main issue is with the awareness and
I think so, yeah. And I think you guys have
options.
literally just said it, like it's just education. Like I'm happy I went to uni, and I'm happy I got my degree and I had a really good time at uni. But I do think I could still be where I am today by doing a degree apprenticeship in marketing, or even just an apprenticeship in marketing. We have so many ambassadors that do digital marketing or just marketing in general, PR, like whatever it is. And they work for like these massive companies like Google, or I don't know, whatever it is. There's so many in Google. That's why it's the first one that comes to my head. But like, there is in just a good position as I am. So, and they didn't go to uni. And I just think it is just that stigma of you have to go to uni to be able to get to all these big companies and work in London and get a good wage. And I just don't think that's how it is anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I actually, when I was applying to university, there was one degree apprenticeship that was out back then, which was for Nestle. And I remember I went to it. I'd done like I applied and I went to like the open day, and then I actually got like an interview. But even that, I mean, the process was, I don't know, it seemed a lot more daunting. Whereas nowadays, I think because there's more companies that do things, it's a lot more, I suppose, relaxed, and it's more like kind of not easy, but it wasn't as it was kind of more unknown, and it felt like a bit unorganized. No one knew what they was doing, and I think it was very much in a way that if you want to get in, you have to know someone in the company, or like, that kind of approach. Whereas nowadays it's very much more, I think, more accepting and more like, okay, we're going to welcome everyone and give everyone a chance, which is nicer, much, much better.
So in terms of like, you were talking about like the who you know kind of thing. I think that links nicely to like our next question in terms of like, do you have any tips for people, or resources or anything like that, or, for networking?
Yeah, we were speaking about this earlier, weren't we, Becky?
Yeah.
I feel like the biggest tip that I could tell anybody about networking is LinkedIn. And
I love LinkedIn.
It does sound so simple, but when we had this young girl in for work experience, I think she was 16 or 17, and I said to her, "Oh, have you got LinkedIn?" And she said, "What's LinkedIn?" And I thought, what do you mean, what's LinkedIn? Like, I thought everybody knew what it was. But she was still at school. She was in year 11. And you forget that people don't know what that is. If you're not in the working environment, why are you going to know what LinkedIn is? Like, you're probably not. But I think even for students, like if you are going to go down that apprenticeship route or that entry level job or whatever it is, start making your network now. And if you know you want to work in certain companies, maybe start connecting with people that are currently apprentices there. Even send them a message and ask them like, oh, how did you find the recruitment process? And kind of just use that as like LinkedIn's your best friend, basically, because I use it all the time. But I think as a student, you can use it in a different way and just kind of find out all the things that maybe you shouldn't know, but that you're going to find out anyway, about the like application process, and kind of just get ahead of the game. I think LinkedIn's great, and I think everybody should have it for sure.
And I think as well, it's helpful for, again, building the connections, because I remember, I mean, I've had LinkedIn for quite a while now. I think I got it quite early on. And I remember when I was working in the hotel, we used to have like clients coming in, like to kind of, for their meetings or whatever it was. I used to obviously be speaking to them, serving them breakfast. And I used to be like, okay, what's your name and stuff like that. And then I connected them on LinkedIn. But that kind of helped.
That is clever, to be fair. I didn't do that, but I do think that's a great piece of advice.
It was. It's not trying to be stalkery or anything. It's like you're talking to them, you're building up a connection. Like, they come in every week or whatever. And I remember he gave me his business card, and I was like, well, I'm just going to have a look. And I added him, and then, you see when they've got jobs available, it could be a way in, or you can find out what's going on. And then because of that, then you get connected with more people, and it's just a good way to kind of not just get yourself out there, but also get the opportunities that are out there. So it's a way to kind of make yourself known. And, it's also like, if you wanted to say you're interested in, I don't know, recruitment, you want to go into recruitment, you can then connect with other people, see what they're doing, how they're doing what they're doing. And if there's any events that are coming up, like if there's any expeditions or any like, online courses or whatever it is, it's a great way to get more insight into what you want to do. And they even do like on LinkedIn as well, like all these online courses, and you know, you can do like social media and all this kind of like it's called like Linda, I think, LinkedIn Learning or something. But yeah, you can do all of that, and it's really good to try and just boost your skills. It's like all in one platform. I mean, yeah, it's great. We love it. But on top of that as well, aside from LinkedIn, that's obviously something social media-y, but there's also like just going to careers fairs and going like getting yourself out there. Like, don't be afraid. And you know, like we said earlier, like, you know, phoning up companies. If you really, there might be a shop over the road from where you live, and you might be thinking, right, I really want to get some work experience in there. Ring them up or go in there and just ask them. Like, there's no harm in asking. And it's really just about having the confidence and, I suppose, getting yourself out there. That's all you can do. Like, it's not going to come to you. You've got to go to it.
I definitely agree that really being proactive with like the careers fairs and reaching out is really going to, as Laura said, like it really puts you ahead, because only like companies will only advertise a certain amount of positions, and everyone's going to see those positions. Everyone is going to take that default route. Everyone's going to look on the websites, and you're going to be competing with an abundance of people that, you know, take this, like, just look on the website. But if you have this network and you're emailing, you're cold calling these people that you're interested in working with, they might start providing you opportunities that they haven't necessarily released yet, or they might make something new for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then in that way, you've kind of got like exclusive access into these, like, you know, big businesses, or you know, these labs, or anywhere you want to work,
and
without the competition.
I was just going to say, Sarah, I think that's interesting actually, because when I was at uni, I actually emailed like, I don't know, it must have been like 50 companies, asking them for part-time marketing work. And the company that I actually ended up working for, I worked there in the end for full-time for 2 years. And they were like, we weren't actually looking for anybody, but because you were so proactive, and I emailed them and kind of said, look, do you have any roles going? I'm at uni, I want like a part-time job. And they ended up taking me on part-time and then full-time once I finished uni. But it just kind of goes to show that proactive approach is like really appreciated by employers, because like they weren't looking for anyone, they weren't hiring, but I ended up getting the job anyway that I kind of made for myself.
But
that's really good.
I mean, what I done the summer internship. So in my summer, obviously, I was at uni, and I went and done an internship for 6 weeks, and that 6 weeks I'm still working for them now, like as a freelance role. But like in terms of that, it's really about using them contacts, and then when you create a good, I suppose, reputation, or, you know, you create a relationship with the employer, it really you know, makes a difference. And I mean, as you were saying, Luke, if you go to careers fairs or whatever it may be, you can speak to people, and you might speak to an employer. The people that are there are obviously the ones that are going to be doing the recruitment, or, you know, they're a name in the company. If you leave a good impression on them and you seem really interested and stuff like that, they'll remember you. And I mean, if you go to a few that are all local and stuff, and you see them again, I'm sure they'll recognise you. I mean, it happens. I mean, not in a career way, but, you know, I went to a wedding fair, and there was someone there who I spoke to ages ago. And then I went to her again last week. I didn't know she was going to be there, and she recognised me just because she was like, oh, we spoke on the phone. And I was like, oh yeah, we did. I forgot about it. And it's just because I was proactive, followed up from them, you know, took her leaflets and stuff, followed up from it, and they do remember you. So I think it's really about, you know, you might get loads of freebies at the fairs and stuff. Or take them and use them wisely. Because I think a lot of it is that you don't want to be seen maybe in front of your friends or whatever it is, like, you know, being like, you know, all clever and like nerdy or whatever you want to call it, when you're trying to go up and be like the teacher's pet or whatever they want to say. But you're the one who's, at the end of the day, you're doing it for you, and it's your life, so you've got to kind of do that. I
remember hearing online, I'm not sure what the exact statistic was, but I think it was like 50% of jobs aren't advertised.
Wow,
something like that.
That's so interesting.
And kind of saying like how it's just can go from like connections or fairs like that, or networking. And I think there's this book called, I can't remember what it's called, but it might be The Third Door, and basically talking about this similar thing where it's like you're trying to find like a unique way into whatever you want to do, like a job or whatever, like reaching out you like specifically to them, and kind of just like making that opportunity for yourself and not waiting for it to like just be there.
I think that kind of goes,
I think that's really important.
Like, it kind of links back to the point of the fact that it's not always what's on your CV, it's about you as a person. And literally by being proactive or by calling them, going to the careers fair, you're showing them who you are as a person. And then proactive skills are like key in so many companies, like just to even like communication and things like that, you're showing them different skills, and I just think it really links back to that point, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I think as well, there's as you said, not everything's advertised. like all the jobs and stuff. I think that's also changing in a way that, for example, who would have thought that we'd now be using like TikTok to advertise jobs, or you know, that people use LinkedIn. A few years ago, it was all about Indeed and CV Library and all that kind of thing, which was great. I mean, I think I got my internship from using Indeed. But nowadays, a lot of organisations are actually realising, and I speak to a lot of employers every day, they're basically saying that they're realising it's not worth it. Like, it's not the platform that's best for them at the minute. It's not working in terms of getting the right candidates, because remember, Indeed, you can get like access to everyone on that. Whereas if you think about, obviously, Not Going to Uni, that's kind of specific for finding opportunities if you don't want to go to uni, and obviously, you know, the 16 to 24-year-old bracket. So it's about being more niche, and I think more specific to who you're really trying to target, rather than just putting it out there for everyone to see, because that's not going to get you what you need. Yeah. It's about being clever, I suppose, to knowing where you want to find what you want to find and how to get what you want to get.
Yeah, 100%. You have to have like the motivation to like chase after these opportunities, right? 'Cause no one's going to provide them for you, unfortunately.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Like we were saying about LinkedIn, like nowadays employers can literally search for people and message them directly. Like, you can get messages in your inbox, people saying, "Oh, this opportunity is available," or it works vice versa as well. Like we were talking about, how you can literally reach out to employers, and like with the LinkedIn's, obviously they advertise jobs in there as well now, and but yeah, like this, like you can literally see millions of people on LinkedIn, just like get an idea of, oh, they do this role. What did they do before? How did they get there? Or can I like
just follow their career path, can't you?
But you can see so many different opportunities on there, because even just by following someone's timeline, I mean, you know, would we even be here today if we didn't connect on LinkedIn? I mean, you know, I haven't got your phone numbers, so would we be doing this podcast? I mean, who knows? Like, you know what I mean? It's about trying to reach out, and it's about using your connections wisely, and, you know, just keeping up to date with everyone. It's like, I mean, I think that's why I really like it, because I think it's a way to kind of keep on trend, if you want to say. Like, you know, you can see what people are doing, but then think, well, okay, if they're doing that, so how can I do something like that? Or how can I work with that? Like, what's kind of like the link? And there's so much out there that you can really, you know, keep up to date and find out everything on there. So definitely, whoever's listening to this needs to make sure they've got a LinkedIn, because honestly, it's the best thing you ever do.
100%. Like, in my placement year
for job searching. Sorry, Alex.
It's all right. Go on, you jump in.
No, it's all good.
So like in my placement year, I had a lot of I used LinkedIn a lot in terms of like using it for marketing. So I done like some event marketing, and it was a very good way to just reach people's inboxes of like people that are like high level in companies. Like CEOs still reply to their LinkedIn messages. Like you'll be surprised who you can actually reach, and it's just like I guess all it takes is just hitting that connection request and sending them a message. And
but as well, like, you know, it's a free channel. You haven't got to even pay for a premium profile. You can, but you don't need to. Like, it's, you know, you can just do that by that, and you just connect. And even if you connect and then you don't, you know, you send a message, you don't reply, well, at least you've sent a message. They might have read it, they might just not want to reply to it, but they've seen it, they recognise your name, or, you know, you've popped up and you'll be on their timeline or whatever it is. And remember as well, like, it's something you can have on your phone, so, you know, you don't even need to be sitting in an office to use it. It's literally something you can do in your own time. So I think that's why, as you said, Alex, obviously you can reach out to, like, you know, CEOs of companies or whatever, because it's just something they can do in their spare time. I
think you'll be quite surprised the sort of the kind of people you can get in contact with. There's a book called The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, and he used to do a course, and he used to get his students to try and reach like the most famous person they could in like a week, and they came back with like some like really ridiculous. They were like, you know, had like the phone number of like the CEO of like these big companies.
Oh my god!
So I think, not sure what the exact technique is, unfortunately. I'm sure maybe Tim Ferriss still does his like talks. I'm not sure, but that's something that, you know, just to sort of put out there, maybe how easy it can be to get in contact with these people.
I remember hearing that it was like 6 people away from anyone in the world or something.
Hearing that, no, but it's true, and you never know what you can get from that. There's like, think about where you're sitting like now, you know, in your home. How many people are going to be around you? How many opportunities potentially? Yeah, I mean, for example, I was thinking the other day, I spoke to my neighbour. I didn't even know where they worked, found out where they worked, and I was like, oh, that's a really good opportunity. Like, I could find out if they do, like, you know, what they offer there. And you never know who you talk to, so that's why networking is so great.
Yeah, 100%. It's exciting. I think I don't know what a good bit of advice would be to, what you're going to put in your email, what you're going to say on the phone. But I think the most important thing is just establishing like that connection and offering to set in a call or something to discuss it in more detail. I mean, in the first email, you don't even need to go into the specifics. If you're not sure, just reach out and say, I'm interested.
Yeah.
And then see what you get back. I think you miss 100% of the opportunities you don't take.
Absolutely.
It's so true. If you don't try, then you're never going to know. And it's about, even if you don't send a message, just like do a little like or a little clap for the support or whatever it is. Just do something to show, because then it pops up. Because remember, we all get a notification to say, XYZ liked your post or whatever. So then they might think, oh, who's that? And then they might go look on your profile. They might not, but you never know. And it's like you said, if you miss the opportunity, then, you miss the opportunity. Someone else, like your best friend, could go and compete and go and win over and get that job instead. Like, you never know. So
yeah, I think it's more awareness, isn't it? And especially as a student, like we're saying, go and get LinkedIn, but that probably sounds so scary. Like, oh yeah, go and connect with the CEO of whoever. I think it doesn't have to be as scary as that. I think it's just more about awareness. And like Becky said, maybe it is just liking a post, or like you don't have to be posting every day. And do you know what I mean? It is just that awareness side of it. And as Becky said, it's about your name will come up. And if you then apply, maybe the person that you've just connected with is the one looking at your application. Like, you don't know.
I mean, Laura,
awareness.
Do you remember when you first got LinkedIn? I mean, that was recently-ish. But last year maybe. But I remember you had no clue, and you was like, Becky, how do you have like so many connections or whatever? How do you do this? How do I post? What do I do? And I said to you, I was like, you've just got to kind of, see what you like. You're into marketing, so see who else is into marketing. See who you've spoken to. See your, your clients or whatever. Like some content that's like using the same hashtag. And now look at you. Now you use it like every day, and you love it. So it's about trying to, just start small, but then you can get as big as you want. And you haven't got to post every day. It's definitely not like that. You don't even have to post at all. I mean, it would be good, but obviously you can just kind of post when something's happened or like whatever. But it's just to kind of keep aware and just show you're active, and send a little like. That's all you need to do. It's just keeps you up to date with the industry.
Yeah, agreed.
I think Alex, you have something to say? Sorry.
No, that was all.
Yeah, no, I was going to add, just I guess as like maybe not like a concluding statement, but what do you think would be the most important advice for someone that's kind of in the GCSE / A-Level stage, so year 11, 12, 13, or maybe to yourselves at this period of your lives?
I would say you haven't got to have it all figured out when you leave school. I mean, it would be great if you did, but I think don't be hard on yourself if you haven't, because I know myself, I was hard on myself because I didn't think I had it all planned out, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. But realistically, your decisions will just kind of, you make that decision and then your life will just follow, and everything happens for a reason. So, if you want to go to university, go to university, and that's meant to be. If you want to do an apprenticeship, do that. I think just don't be hard on yourself. There's some sort of, I don't know what you want to call it, but your life will follow and it will guide you the right way.
Yeah, I think and this is more from like a careers perspective rather than a whole life perspective, but apply for both. And I always say this to people, like, apply for university and for that apprenticeship and for that entry level job, or whatever it is you're looking to do. If you're not sure, apply for both, because then you can always decline one or take the other. And I think it's just keeping your options open. There's nothing wrong with applying for both. You can do that.
Yeah.
100%. Like that's exactly what I did. I applied to both, kind of like I didn't know exactly which one I wanted to do, so I kind of just like left my options open and then kind of just like made the decision once the time.
And there's
came.
nothing wrong with that, is there? Like, I think it almost maybe makes you feel less stressed, because either way, hopefully you have an option. So
yeah. And I mean, if you say no, for example, like, if you apply for both and then, who cares if you say no to, the apprenticeship or the job interview or whatever, because, they understand recruiters will have everyone else kind of lined up anyway. So it's like, you've got to do what you need to do for yourself at the end of the day. So yeah, definitely just follow your gut, as we said earlier, follow your gut.
Absolutely.
It seems to be a very peculiar consensus between our guests on this show that everyone seems to be saying, we're so young and you don't have to have everything figured out so early, but that might just be our demographic of guests.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Might have to change things up a bit, Alex.
Yeah, probably get someone slightly older and they'll say, you must know what you're doing.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. We'll think about that. Could be interesting.
Absolutely.
So before we wrap up, are there any big updates from Not Going to Uni that could be interesting to students, or anything the best place we can direct them? Is it your website, your social medias? Is anything you can link in the description?
Well, I'd say social media wise, we're most active on Instagram, which is literally just at Not Going to Uni. And we also manage our direct messages and stuff on there. Me and our marketing executive manage that. So there is always somebody on the other end of the message if you do kind of want to ask a question. And then if you are generally looking for applying for things or advice, again, the website, which is notgoingtouni.co.uk.
Yeah. And with the Instagram as well, just to kind of latch onto that, there's also some great opportunities to see from, as we mentioned, our ambassadors, but also you can see a day in the life of, so they do a takeover of our Instagram, and that's really great to see different opportunities like construction or, engineering or, whatever it is, anything really. We have kind of an ambassador showing what their life is, so it gives a good opportunity to students to see what it could look like if they was to do something similar. So check it out.
Yeah, we'll be sure to put all the information in the show notes.
Thank you very much
For everyone to go and check out.
Fabulous.
Okay, thanks you. With our guests, we like to end with a few rapid fire questions.
Oh, okay.
Does that sound all right?
Go for it. We'll try our
No
best.
pressure, guys.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'll ask the first question. Should we go Rebecca and then Laura?
Yeah, go for it.
With the answers. Okay, so one of your favourite films of all time?
Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, that's a really good one. I was going to say Mean Girls or something. Not very educational, sorry.
No, Shawshank Redemption, that's a very good film.
We'll go with Becky's answer. Mine was just generally going to be Mean Girls.
No, both are valid. Both are valid.
No, they're both good
I
answers. We want to see all perspectives.
I do Mean Girls, so.
And then next is one book you would recommend others to read, fiction or non-fiction, and why?
Oh my gosh, I don't even know the last book I read. That's so bad. The last book I read was Sarah Harding, about her life, and I know it's not really that. To me, it was quite moving, and I think I would recommend people to read it to really understand about she had cancer. So it's good to, if you want to understand that and how it's hard treatment and stuff. I'd have to say that.
What was the last book I read? The last book I read, and I actually would recommend this, is the Molly May autobiography. And people have her opinions on her, I know they do, but I really like her. And as a young woman myself, the same as her, I just found it really inspirational to kind of read her tips and tricks of how she got to where she is.
Is that Molly May? Was she on
Love Island?
Love Island? Is that?
Yeah.
I thought I recognised the name.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she's got
Put a face to a name.
she's got her whole business and stuff now as well. She's only 22, so she's doing
Exciting.
well, put it that way.
I think it's quite inspiring though, reading loads of different people's autobiographies.
Yeah,
I know
I like
it's
those
about
kind of
that, but it's about seeing how they get so famous. Another one to throw in would be Lily Collins. She's got a really good autobiography about her story. Anyway.
Really good. So next question. If you could have a billboard with anything on it, what would it be and why?
Oh my gosh. I would say something about mental health awareness. I would say, so whether it's a poster or some sort of just a big message to say, you're not alone. You always hit there's always someone here for you, kind of thing. Because that's something I just believe in, mental health. So yeah.
I was going to say something similar actually, but I think mine would be more an inspirational quote or something that I wish I could just see every day. I literally live by the saying everything happens for a reason, and I think more people kind of need to live by that, and seeing that every day would probably really help me to believe in that more as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then last question is, if you could have dinner with any 3 people, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Go on.
Or maybe one person if it's too difficult for 3.
Oh, okay. I would probably say, David Beckham, and that sounds really weird, but I think recently what happened in the news, obviously you heard about with the Queen and everything, and I think he's just really inspirational in that sense. I'd like to understand, his motivations and how he is such a good human being. Obviously, and I'm sure he cooks great as well, but that's what I would probably say. Laura? Oh, okay. Okay, and maybe another one would probably be, maybe David Attenborough, actually. I feel like he would be quite interesting. I always listen to his documentaries, and that's really good. I think he'd be an interesting one to kind of speak to. Oh, Laura, who would you like to have dinner with?
I would say, and I actually had this in my head before you were speaking, would probably be like Rochelle Humes or again Molly May. I find both of them so inspiring. Like women again, but they both have like their own businesses and they're both young. And yeah, I just find like business women who are young and kind of have all their stuff together really inspiring.
Yeah.
So I guess them two would probably be top of my list.
Awesome. Yeah, that's some really good answers there.
You put us on the spot there. That was good.
Yeah, they were just difficult questions.
Yeah.
I think it really brings out like personality, right? For just to see like, you know, because we talk about all these like, you know, these things about careers and stuff. It's just nice to get to know the guests like personally as well.
Yeah, definitely.
I was worried that we were going to say the same answers.
Yeah, we usually do that.
The same, but yeah.
Yeah, because I saw these questions. Like I think it was somewhere in from like Tim Ferriss or something, from one of his books or something, and I was like, okay, those are really good questions to ask because they're really like they're quite intriguing.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so thanks a lot, Rebecca and Laura, for coming on. Of course, we'll link all the Not Going to Uni stuff in the description. Yeah, thanks a lot for taking your time out of the day.
Thank you very much.
If you did enjoy this episode, to all the people listening, please like, subscribe to the podcast. We are on all the social media platforms. Also, if you're listening on audio, we are on all the other audio platforms like Apple, Spotify, Google, and we are also on YouTube. If you are watching, you'll see us right here. But if you're not on YouTube, we're also audio only. So yeah, thanks a lot for listening, everybody. And we will see you in the next one.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming on, guys. It's been great fun.